No verdict in day one of those jury deliberations in the Jennifer Crumbley involuntary manslaughter trial. The jury deliberated for about 7 hours and there was some action. The jury did have some questions today, one about the judge's instructions, the other about evidence, namely why they didn't bring evidence of the shooter or bring the shooter himself in to testify. So let's bring in our senior trial
Hey,
attorney, Terry Johnson. Terry, long time no see. We know you were here with us earlier this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Terrence, thanks for having me.
All right, so we know that they had those questions today, and we are still waiting to hear from the jury. Your thoughts on how things are going in those deliberations so far? I know we're still waiting to hear from them exactly, but they have a lot to consider.
They do have a lot to consider, and the interesting thing in all of this right now is nobody knows what they're talking about. I am sure that people are very emotional. I'm sure people have probably raised their voices, and I've seen trials where less has been on the line, and the jurors have been yelling at each other and some other things. You can kind of hear it through the door. So we're not sure what's going on. The only thing I can surmise from some of this is they're trying to put some things together. And especially from the second question, why didn't we hear from the shooter or other witnesses? And I think the judge correctly um, basically told them, you're not going to hear from them because they're not evidence. All you get is what we give you, and that's what you've got to make your decision on. People want more and more and more, and sometimes they're just not able to get it.
Yeah, and Terry, I know with a case like this, sometimes it's hard for people to compartmentalize that this is just Jennifer Crumbley's trial and her potential role in manslaughter in what happened here. How easy can it be for people to kind of overlap some of the facts and pull from certain things that don't necessarily tie to Jennifer?
That's a great question. And if you go back to the judge's instructions, one of the things she said, again, you have to take the things that are brought into this court, the sworn testimony. So, you heard from some police officers, you heard from some school counselors, you heard from Jennifer Crumbley. That's sworn evidence. And then exhibits. Well, which exhibits are we talking about? We're talking about some of the body cam footage. We're talking about her interview with the police officers, and whatever else the judge tells them to consider. Other than that, they're not supposed to consider anything. And the biggest problem is, if you go back to jury selection, everybody's heard of this case and everybody knows what this case is about, but you've got to put a lot of those things, behind you. And I just hope that the jurors are not in there wondering something along the lines of, well, we got to punish them for something because we've got four dead people. And again, that's not what they should be doing. What they should be doing is saying, did Jennifer Crumbley do anything to either negate? Could she have done anything to negate what her son did, or is she, so negligent that she did something that caused this? That should really be the only question that they're discussing in the back.
And with those discussions happening now, what exactly is that jury doing? Walk us through the process. We know they were presented with so much evidence and testimony from both sides. How does this process work now?
Well, so what happens at this point is generally the jurors go in and they've been thinking about this for what, 7, 8 days. And wow, they're rubbing their hands together and they're like excited. We finally get to talk to, to the people that are here. I think the first shocker was five of them are no longer there. As you remember, we had a jury of started with 17, but you can only have 12 deliberate. So some of those are gone. The ones that are left get to talk about the case. They first will elect a foreman, someone to speak on their behalf. And I would assume they'd say, okay, let's talk about the case. At some point, they take a vote. One thing I can tell you for sure, as of right now, the vote is not unanimous. We don't know what the count is. We don't know if it's 11-1 or 10-2 or 9-3 or anything at this point. And we don't even know which way it's leaning because that's just the way the system works. So they are having a discussion, and one person is trying to convince some another person of something, and they're just all trying to, collaborate at this point to come to a unanimous, and that's the key word, unanimous verdict, regardless if it's not guilty or guilty. It has to be unanimous.
Terry, something I wanted to ask you earlier. Any thoughts on the defense attorney and her approach? I know that that's been a big talker with this trial. Do you think that that could have an influence in maybe confusing the jury in certain ways or adding to just some of the conversations that are happening right now?
Well, the interesting thing, and attorneys generally, skilled trial attorneys generally do not insert themselves into trial. I mean, this should be about the prosecutor did this. Now, when I say the prosecutor, I'm not saying specifically the prosecutor as an individual. I'm saying the office and what they're standing for. But I've never seen a defense attorney insert themselves into a trial, even in the closing. I mean, I get it and I understand where she was going in terms of any of us can be Jennifer Crumbley. Don't let this happen to you. But I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, it may have a factor in there because jurors want to. This is what I've learned over the years. They have to go home and justify their decision to their family because people are going to ask them, why did you vote that way? And they're going to say, I didn't like the defendant. I didn't like the prosecutor, or I didn't like the defense attorney. It's going to be something like that. And they need some way to justify the reason they come up with, the verdict that they do.
All right, Terry, you have been with us from the beginning, even in the Miller trial, to now helping us break down every aspect of what is happening, and it is truly appreciated. Thank you.
Terrence, thank you.